Welcome to the GenAI and Sdlc session, transforming the Sdlc phase with GenAI. What if I tell you if AI could help us develop a real-world job application portal faster and more efficiently? The objective of today's session is we'll see how generative AI can enhance the Sdlc process using an actual job application portal Sdlc document as our reference. Our job application portal follows the following Sdlc phases. First is requirement analysis, which includes requirement gathering and analysis, user storage generation. Second is design. The design phase, basically, we design the architecture. We come out with sequence flow diagrams, data flow diagrams, data modeling. We come out with UX and UI designs. In the implementation phase, we basically start the development, write code, and debug. The testing phase, we write test cases, and we do the testing. In the deployment phase, we write the CI/CD pipelines and configure the application for deployment. In the maintenance phase, we take care of the application by maintaining the code, maintaining versions, etc. Next is challenges in each phase. Requirement analysis. Based on our reference, we have handling premium versus free job post. In terms of design, we have OSWAP security, multi-factor authentication. In terms of implementation, we need to use Angular, Spring Boot, and JWT authentication. In terms of testing, we have validations, email, phone, and payment. In terms of deployment, we need to deploy both the front-end and back-end application. In terms of maintenance, we need to take care of error handling, logging, custom exceptions, and error pages. How we can use GenAI in each of the phases. For requirement analysis, we can use ChatGPT or Bard in order to do the requirement analysis and user storage generation. In test on design, we can use Figma AI, or you can use DALL-E, or we can use some other AI tools like Arisa.io to generate architecture diagrams, sequence flow diagrams, data flow diagrams, etc. In terms of implementation, we can use GitHub Copilot, tab 9, to generate code and fixing of the bugs. In terms of testing, we can use different AI tools like TestRigor, CodiumAI, and even GitHub Copilot to generate test cases. In terms of deployment, we can use GitHub Actions for AI-based automated CI/CD pipeline generations. In terms of maintenance, we can use New Relic AI and DataDog for end-to-end monitoring. Now let's look into how we can solve some of the challenges of the Sdlc phases using GenAI. Since Sdlc has different phases, but in this session, we are more focused on how we can use GenAI to empower coding, testing, documentation, and deployment. In terms of code generation, we can use prompts like Generate A, Spring Boot API for job application. For testing, we can use something like this, Generate Unit Test for job application logic. For documentation, we can use Convert backend logic into detailed documentation. For deployment automation, we can use automatic deployment of Spring Boot and Angular apps. All these are just example prompts. These prompts might vary based on use case to use case. Now, since we have got an understanding of the Sdlc pages, we have got some idea about some of the AI tools and some prompts. Now it's time for us to understand the requirement first. Since every GenAI tool needs a prompt to basically execute a task. So in order to design a prompt, first of all, we need to understand what is our requirement. So we want to build an online job application portal. And this is our Sdlc document for the online job application portal. So if we go through a document, it has a problem statement. It also tells us about the users of the system who will do what, the functional requirements, the non-functional requirements, the application flow. In terms of applicant, in terms of admin. It also tells us what are the modules of the application in terms of admin, in terms of applicant. It tells us the technology stack we need to use in terms of front-end, back-end, and the authentication. It also tells us about the validation, the client-side validation, server-side validation, exception handling, error pages. It also tells us what are the different types of controllers we need to design. It also gives us some sample screenshots of the front-end application. Now, since it also has the classes for job application, for user, for payment, so basically, this requirement document gives us the overall picture of how our online job application portal should be designed. Now, let us try to design a prompt. In order to generate a set of instructions that can be provided to GitHub Copilot so that it can help us to generate the code in the application. Let's dive into that. I've already designed a prompt based on the document, the requirement document we have. So the prompt goes something like this. You are an experienced full-stack developer skilled in Java, Spring Boot, and Angular. Please study the Evolve requirement document. Based on the requirement document, please do the following. Modules and controllers. So this line basically will help us, will instruct the AI tool to generate the modules and the controllers. Identify the necessary backend controllers to handle requests for the given functionality. Ensure that classes, properties, and the appropriate HTTP methods are assigned to each controller. I hope you understand what it will help us to do. Classes and properties. Extract and define the required class, including their properties for both backend models and any data transfer objects. Align this with the system's business logic, considering the expected database schema and any relationship between entities. Front-end screens. Based on the section containing front-end screenshots in the document, create Angular components to match the UI. Make sure the components are responsive and use the appropriate Angular features, reactive forms, routing, and services for API calls. If you see right, these prompts is structured to execute different components of the application. Now, in terms of integration, we have integrate the backend controllers with the Angular frontend in saying that the data flows smoothly between the client and server. Utilize this full API calls with Angular's HTTP client module for communication. Based on the evoke create instructions for GitHub Copilot to write the necessary code. As mentioned before, we can use GitHub Copilot to generate code, but GitHub Copilot also needs some instructions on what to generate. So we'll use this prompt basically to create a set of instructions for GitHub Copilot. And this prompt will be fed to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will help us to generate a set of instructions for GitHub Copilot. Then we'll use the same set of instructions to GitHub Copilot to execute or to generate our code. We also need to put some conditions so that we are following our document strictly. Adhere to the naming conventions as per the document. Keep the file names aligned with the modules. Please stick to the requirements of the document. Based on the above, create instructions for GitHub Copilot to generate the necessary code. Please include instructions to set up the application also. Keep the port number specific to the document. As you can see how this prompt will design. Now in the next section, we'll be diving into how this prompt actually works and what are the results we will be achieving. Now as discussed, let's see it in action. So I uploaded the job application portal Sdlc document in ChatGPT. Then I have pasted the prompt here as I showed you in the last section. And now let's see the magic of ChatGPT. You see it has generated the complete response into different structures like modules and classes and properties, front-end screens, integration, and GitHub Copilot instructions. Now let's go to the GitHub Copilot instructions, because we'll be using that in order to generate our application. If you see, the first step is the project setup. So if you see backend set of Spring Boot, ambient install, ambient Spring Boot run. This is for running the application. For same thing for the front end. Okay. Create a Spring Boot project with JPEG. I'll paste the prompt here. The instructions basically. Create a Spring Boot project with JPH. So if you see, all the instructions are here. Now let's see the magic of Copilot. If you see right now, we just have the complete structure of our application. Now what we need to do? We need to create a workspace. So let's click on Create Workspace. So we'll be just placing it in Sdlc folder. So now let's wait for GitHub Copilot to create our project. So it takes some time. Meanwhile, let's go to the instructions for generating our front-end Angular application. Let's copy the instructions. Then go to another VS Code window. Okay, I think the workspace already created. So let's open that for our Spring Boot applications, and let's go close the previous window. Yes, I trust the contents. And if you see, we have everything right here. We have the admin controller file, we have the application controller Java, we have the auth controller.java, we have the job controller.java, we have the payment controller.java. We have the model, application model. We have the job model. We have the payment model. We have the user model. We have the DTOs, repositories. And we have the services also. So basically, we have a role application generator here. If you see this, public application, apply for job. Get application for job. Delete application. So we have everything here. Now let's go back to our Angular application. So here in this window, we will paste our instructions for creating an Angular application. And let's see the magic of Copilot now. Oh, that's the beauty of GitHub Copilot. We have our work application. Now we create a workspace. We'll do in the same folder, Sdlc, and select a parent folder. Now, meanwhile, it is creating. If you see, we can go to our ChatGPT window. In the last session, we saw how GitHub Copilot helped us to create our project structure, the files, and generate the necessary code. Right now, we'll see how GitHub Copilot can help us in fixing the issues in our code. As you can see, the code generated by GitHub Copilot right now has some issues. Now, I use GitHub Copilot here, and you see it has given me the fixed version with instruction. What changes the GitHub Copilot has made? If you see it had added missing imports for injectable, it has added the injectable decorator. So what I need to do right now, I'll just copy this as a whole, Control A, and I'll paste that code. And you see this is now that has been fixed. The other file we can use in the same way. What should I text next? So now it will test our APPL file. If you see, it also generated a test service for our HTTP client testing module. We'll see how we can fix some other issues in the code. Like for example, we are in the Now Manage Jobs component HTML page. So I'll just instruct GitHub Compiler to fix the problems in my code. Okay, it has done it. So what I do is I just copy it. Control A and done. So now if you see. Okay, I'll just click on Fix using GitHub Copilot. Accept the changes, same we do here. I think this is fine. Right, now what we need to do is, I'll create a new chat in Gator Copilot, then I'll instruct Gator Copilot to help me write the test cases. Now we have one instruction here, test and add unit test for my code. So I'll instruct this. So it says, it looks like you may not have tests set up in the supposed rate. Would you like to set them up? Yes, I want. So we'll go with Jasmine. And now I click on Apply Changes. And it will start setting up Jasmine in my repository. And also it will start generating the test file and writing the test cases. Let us recap this session. In today's session we learned how generative AI can enhance the Sdlc process, using an actual job application portal Sdlc document as our reference. So this was all about transforming the Sdlc phase with GenAI. I hope you had a great session. Thanks for watching. See you in the next session.